In brightest day, in blackest night, all other podcasts tremble in fright. Losers cower before the power. Oranges lust and blues you can trust. Indigos feel and white ones heal. Yellows scare and green ones dare. That sapphire love and black hands glove will rock your foundation without hesitation. Chad and Marge face evil's might. Respect their power, for they'll make you see the light.
Hi, everybody. I'm Chad Vogelman.
I'm Mark Marble.
And this is the LanternCast.
Episode 308, I think.
That's right, 308. We are talking about Hal Jordan, the Green Lantern Corps, number 33, 34, 35, and 36, also known as Twilight of the Guardians. Woo! The Guardians!
Yeah.
Finally!
Which the story arc itself isn't bad, but then they have to kind of like ruin it by throwing in some commentary we'll talk about, I think, from Kyle. But blah, 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 blah. It's like, give me your. It's like you can't even address the fact that you've purposely been throwing dirt on these guys for like 4 years, and then all of a sudden, oh, we thought you were on sabbatical somewhere. It's like, yeah, right. That's why everybody's talking like you were friggin' dead. That's the part spoiler alert, that's the only thing that really pissed me off about this arc, is that they had left that out. It's like, no, you couldn't just fess up and acknowledge the crap that both books have been doing. It's like, no, you gotta try to make it seem like we're stupid, and we're not gonna remember that you've been making it sound like, oh, even when Ganthet and Sage showed up, which, mind you, it makes more sense. People would be shocked that they were alive, because people thought they were, well, Sage people thought was dead a long time ago, but Ganthet you figured was killed by Sinestro. But still, the idea that everybody, oh, you got a Guardian? We thought they were either way. It's gotta be something, but I mean, let me take my glasses off.
All right, for those of you who normally don't stick around to the end of the episode, I wanted to let you guys know in advance, Mark and I do have an announcement to make concerning next episode, and we need your help. We actually need questions, or really anything, mostly questions, about the Green Lantern mythos. And there's a reason for that, and we won't belabor the point here, but if you have any questions about the entire Green Lantern mythos, the Lanterns themselves, any other Corps, villains, origins, anything like that, we need questions from you. There's a reason why, and stay tuned for the end of the episode. So if you usually listen to the reviews and then just skip the ending, don't do that this time.
Don't do that.
That's right. So Mark's taking the odd issues, and I'm taking the even ones. So that means you're up, man. Go for it.
Which is kind of funny, because like as Chad and I were just talking about, I couldn't even remember what I picked, because there's reason to pick the even issues, there's reason to pick the odd issues, and then I completely forgot which ones I did. But he refreshed my memory. It was the odd, so at least I get the first issue, which I guess is, if I had to pick one issue in this book and this arc I really liked, this is the one. And then I'm out, people. All right, Twilight of the Guardians, Part 1, Smash and Grab. It's an interesting title. Creative team, as I just flipped the page. Robert Venditti, breakdowns, Tom Derenick, Jack Herbert, penciler and inker, pretty much, I think, this entire arc, and he does a really nice job. Jason Wright, colorist, Dave Sharp, letter, Francis Manipool, cover, variant cover, Barry Kitson and High Five, Marino Cotton, and still Berganza, at least to begin this, as part of our editing group. So, how convenient, we begin in space sector unknown, location unknown. The only thing better would have been if we were traveling through transluminal space to get there. So, one of the Templar Guardians, yes, there's a Templar Guardian sighting from the first page. It's like, that was probably for us, Chad. That, Yekop is running away from somebody, and he's using like some kind of like almost like his power drill thing to try to escape. And he gets he gets blasted. He's having conversation with Kellic. Oh, but we were supposed to know who Kellic was by name before this.
I think so.
Okay.
I'll have to research, but I think so.
Yeah, because I'm kind of guessing too, but it meant nothing to me. But then again, I don't have a huge background with the the villains of this arc. Not intimately. Obviously, I know who they are, and I remember seeing Larfleeze do a nice job on them, but but Ycop there and Kellic are having a conversation, and basically we find the first hint at who the villains are in this arc because of the fact that Kellic says to Ycop the fact that however long before you were a Guardian, you were simply Malthusian, and he gets blasted by what kind of orange energy, which is kind of another essential hint, I guess. Now we go to Mogo, and we see, was it Somar Lee? Is that her name?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Who got Tomar 2's ring, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just getting my gotta get on my Zudarians right. And she's kind of hanging out with Ganthet and Sade, and everybody seems, and I do too. Everybody seems to love her youthful exuberance to wielding a power ring for the first time, and talk about telegraphing something I'm sure is going to happen down the road. There's a couple of times in this arc where we kind of get the whole Jon Snow talking to Daenerys thing about not being able to conceive. How Ganthet's trying to put the moves on Sade to have a kid. It's like, hey, did you ever think maybe we should? And all this stuff, mind you, keeps going over Sade's head, but Ganthet seems to have the itch to want to reproduce, and maybe not just because the Guardians are dwindling. But either way, while Ganthet's trying to be not in this obviously way too subtle way of getting the point across, to Sade about what he wants. Somar Lee is really funny as she's flying around. It's like, I'm gonna throw up and I don't care. And then, and a really funny part. See, this is, if you're gonna take a shot at Guy Gardner, this is the context to take it in. When Ganthet's talking about a lantern ought not to be placed on active duty, unless it is assured they will wear the ring responsibly with discipline. And then Jon Stewart shows up and makes the point of, a Guy Gardner joke would be would be too obvious right there. And we have a little conversation, and I like the interaction between Jon Stewart and the Guardians because Jon kind of makes it clear one of the reasons why he more or less hasn't bothered dealing with them since they showed back up was he wasn't entirely happy and sure that he really wanted them back in, considering everything they did and the last time we saw them. But they're all in the midst of these conversations, they're all kind of like enjoying Somar Lee and her ability to just love fully embrace the experience of what a Green Lantern can do without any of the problems, really. So that's kind of and I guess even from a reader's perspective, that's kind of refreshing too, without somebody who's a Green Lantern who isn't bringing a whole lot of their own baggage necessarily into it, nor having the whole baggage of the legacy of the Corps dumped on them. Ganthet gives a nice little, kind of like a pep talk, if you will, or explanation to Jon Stewart about, trying to do better, the Guardians trying to do better, what their legacy is going to be, which gets talked about later on, and While that whole conversation, everything's playing out, we cut to Space Sector 3482, the planet Molter, where Kyle and Hal are pretty much put on a rescue mission here to where they're trying to evacuate all the citizens as a volcano's erupting. So Hal's more or less he's evacuating everybody while Kyle literally making the most bland construct probably Kyle could ever make. Just literally a green wall with green hands pushing it to support it, and Kyle takes the usual kind of like shot at Hal about you do what you need to do. I'll hold back the geological forces of this planet by myself. Hal kind of counters that like, did I ever tell you the time I moved the moon to keep its orbit from degrading into Xylon Prime? And Kyle's like, oh yeah, only like 87 times. And Hal kind of points out exactly what I said about how, Kyle's constructs are pretty bland for him. And Kyle kind of like almost like avoids the question at first. And Kyle just kind of, And a direct contrast to Somar Lee there, Kyle's kind of like saying, well, I like, don't get me wrong, I like being a Green Lantern and all, but he's kind of lamenting all the baggage that's coming with it, which of course also, the elephant in the room is of course related to Soranik, which Hal does kind of reference. But he does it in a good kind of way, trying to tell Hal that, she made her choice, you can't, that's nothing you can do, you can't change her mind, you have to move on. Then whether Kyle's really trying to be helpful or whether this is kind of another shot, maybe a little bit of both. He kind of throws out, you ever think about, which I guess we all assume is Carol. And Hal's got that, like, I like the look on Hal's face, like, what? You went there? It's like, let's just finish this wall. Build that wall. And obviously Hal is we go back to Mogo, where Somar Lee is making some little mini like pseudo lion and elephant from her world anyway, constructs, and she wants to be a animal scientist when she grows up. And Sade kind of says, well, you should focus your energy on making constructs that'll be important or helpful, like in a crisis. And that's when she starts reflecting on, you mean like when Starro attacked my planet and hurt my people and my parents. And Somar Lee kind of closes her eyes and she concentrates and she makes like pretty much huge constructs of these same animals that kind of like just barrel over Ganthet and Sade. Which I like Ganthet. I like Sade at that moment when she goes, it's possible Kilowog might be better suited to train you. and right at that point, when they're having this conversation, we don't know who it is yet, but kind of like you're looking at the costumes, you would kind of suspect that it is who it is. The villains show up, and of course Ganthet and Sade recognize them. They engage them in combat. They tell Somar to go get help, even though Somar wants to stay and fight. But unfortunately, Ganthet and Sade are no match for the hidden villains of the issue, as they get zapped and they get taken away. While John's in the command center talking to Salak, and of course Guy's just kind of like lounging around. Somar comes in, and she kind of tells everybody exactly what happened, and she's she's a kid, so she's having a lot of trouble putting into words what needs to be said. And at this point, she's kind of like freaking out a little, and John kind of contacts Hal and Kyle and says, we have a problem, and a replacement team is inbound, to replace them, on this planet, so they can come back to Mogo to deal with what has to be done. So Kyle and Hal start heading there. Meanwhile, Ganthet and Sade kind of regain consciousness. They're kind of trapped, and then they literally become trapped. They get encased in tubes, and we find out that pretty much all the Guardians, including Raimi, the remaining Templar Guardians, are all being held captive by the remaining controllers. Next, they're in control.
I'm pretty sure we addressed this back when you and I took over the show, but it's probably worthwhile to bring it up again. How do we feel about kids being recruited into the Green Lantern Corps? Because remember when Venditti started, towards the beginning of that run, there was that group of kids, like 2-6 and some of them, right?
Yeah. That
were recruited. I don't think we might have talked about it then, but now that we have yet another kid being recruited, how do we feel about that?
I think I kind of lean towards more what Sade was kind of talking about, how we might want to add wish to add a lower age parameter, whatever. I don't know. Even though you would think she means a higher age parameter, wouldn't it?
Right.
Yeah, that's kind of probably was either miswritten or we might wish to add a lower age parameter. Yeah, you would think it would be a higher age parameter. Yeah, I kind of lean towards the correct sentiment, which is that this should kind of be an age requirement or the equivalent thereof, because obviously not all ages are equal, probably depending on lifespan.
Sorry, I was just thinking of Aricia.
Leave poor Somar Lee and her cute little pot belly out of this. She's adorable though. Yeah, I think it probably would be in the best interest. Now, to be fair, their hands, well, they weren't tied because they agreed to it. But there were extenuating circumstances in her selection because they were doing that to throw Tomar a bone because he wanted to make sure that another Zudarian got the ring as opposed to just somebody in that sector. But yeah, I mean,
and we've met old Somarli, right?
yeah, we supposedly,
So.
which you can almost take to the bank. It's going to be retconned at some point where she won't have the ring that long or regain the ring. That's their out because there's nothing that said that she was Green Lantern, for the entire time frame from when she was little till she was old. So that's
She does mention here that she wants to be like an animal scientist.
Right. So yeah, there is a possibility that she could they could do away with her being a Green Lantern for a while, and then that still does not necessarily screw up continuity. Not that, as we know, most people seem to care about continuity. But it's good to know on paper that she has literally a long and bright future, just in general in her life, not just she was never created to be a throwaway character. At least.
True. I just don't like the idea of kids being. I mean, because John says it. Here in this very issue, he's no intergalactic wars or universe-wide doomsday scenarios, but check with me again in 5 minutes. They're talking about, the kind of stuff that the Green Lantern Corps encounters is cosmic-level threats and stuff. I mean, of course, they patrol their sectors and things, but, that's a bit much for a kid to handle. So it kind of bothers me, but at the same time, it's kind of the story trope, I guess, of kids having the most power. When you encounter I don't know, your atypical horror movie, when a monster or something is created out of the collective imagination of children or whatever because they have the most raw psychic power or something. That kind of trope that happens in storytelling sometimes. I kind of it makes sense on that front. She has boundless will and determination and stuff because she's a kid. But at the same time, I don't know if I quite like it or not. So I guess we'll have to see where they go with it. And how many more kids they recruit to the Green Lantern Corps.
That'll be their next spin-off book, the Kid Corps.
Kid Lantern.
She'll be in charge. Or you put Guy in charge and he's the one to go dial up the nanny because he's already sick of dealing with the kid.
Let's see here. I like the art. There are places where it looks sort of odd, but
it doesn't end on a strong note. Ganthet kind of looks weird in that before he gets thrown into the tube. He has a long face. He kind of has a Hulk-like face.
Hal and Kyle look pretty great in most of their panels. Hal looks weird in one of his. They're laying down the wall. Speaking of Hal, you're evacuating a planet or a section of a planet of workers from this massive thing in these biplanes or whatever. I think you can afford to worry a little less about the legroom there, Hal. Look how much legroom. I've never been on a plane with that much legroom. Good Lord. It's like they're all sitting in the emergency exit row.
Yeah, that's true. He's just making Kyle work for his money there, building that wall.
Other than that, yeah, I don't know what else there's to say about it. The controllers, I looked it up. Kellic, I guess, isn't a name we're supposed to know off the top of our heads. But then again, I'd only went like 2 pages deep in a Google search, so. And all the only results that showed were from this story arc, so. It'd be interesting if we did have a name we recognize, but quite honestly, I don't remember much about the Dark Stars title and any other time we've seen the controllers, so I wouldn't necessarily know the name right off the top of my head if they were to mention an older one.
That is true.
I don't know. What else do you think about this? How do you feel about it? You said it was one of your favorite of the four.
Yeah, as a setup issue, I think it was good. I think I liked, like I said, the art was really good on this. I like the youthful exuberance of Somar, despite our reservations about whether she should be in that position or not. But she is, so I do like the contrast, and maybe that's why there is a place for something like that. Doesn't mean you have to throw these people into. They could almost be like junior lanterns necessarily, especially since theoretically we know they're supposed to be sector partners these days. But I thought it was intriguing, the idea of Ganthet trying to put the thought in Sade's head, or try to get her to come on board with the idea of actually having children, real children. Which obviously becomes a little more relevant at the end when we kind of see where you left off with the number of Guardians and the number of controllers, and both seemingly having no matter what they've done, seemingly having a finite future, because of not having any future generations, whoever those Zamarian kids are. But I would suspect that's something we'll probably see come to fruition. But there's at least one other female Guardian, so we know in theory there's certainly a little bit of room for another generation of Guardians.
For sure. All right, issue number 34. This is part 2. This one's called Witness. Writer Robert Venditti. Breakdowns Tom Derenick. Penciler and inker Jack Herbert. Colorist Jason Wright, letterer Dave Sharp, cover Francis Manipal, variant cover by Barry Kitson and Hi-Fi, assistant editor Andrew Marino, and editor Mike Cotton. We open up on the surface of Mogo. John is outside with Hal, who goes with his gut, Guy Gardner, who leads with his fists, Kyle Rayner, who follows his heart, and John, of course, himself, who trusts his brain, talking to Somar Lee, trying to figure out who took the Guardians of the Universe. Kyle tells everybody to calm the hell down. She's just a kid. And he sits down with her up in the sky and kind of goes with kind of the art method. Can you draw? And, here, your ring can kind of tap into that, but you don't have to move pen to paper. So here, just think about what they look like and then use your ring to project that. She does. And boom, you get, 20 foot tall constructs of the controllers. Everybody recognizes them. It's the Corps' oldest enemy, the controllers. We cut back over to where the controllers are. And they are test running, I guess, this system, because nobody actually dies. Maybe they're just drawing energy. I don't know. Ganthet's still sort of out of it, trying to figure out what's going on. Hey, all the Templar Guardians are here, and there's Raimi, and what's going on? The harvesting procedure requires a living donor. Even Raimi, the old imprudent, as with the Templars, his nomadic habits made him difficult to locate. Yet we succeeded. At last, all of our kind are together. Ganthet gets pissed and says, "We're not your kind." Controllers chose their own path, and they say, "Falsehood, it's the Guardians who betrayed." Kellic says, "Silent, Quado." I guess we have another name. "Ancient quarrels are of no importance. This is not about our differences. It's about that which we share. We are of one kind, Ganthet. Your mind chooses to ignore what your physiology knows to be fact. We are bound by blood. Before we were called ourselves controllers or guardians, before we were pale-skinned or blue, we were first Malthusians. That is why I have brought every last surviving guardian here. None remain to help you now." And then over on Mogo, John devises a plan. So John says it's the controllers, that they wanted the Ganthet and say dead, they'd have left bodies, but they took them. So where did they take them? It's 3,600 sectors, Johnny. We can't exactly knock on doors. So John says, hey, well, then do what honor guard lanterns do. He sends Hal, Kyle, and John out to do what they do. Hal goes to Space Sector 3063 into the barracks of the Mercenary Society. Kyle goes to play cards in 2809 in the Smuggler's Waypoint. And Guy Gardner goes to punch people in the face in Sector 1522 in the Graven Cantina. Hal locks everybody inside and says, we're going to have a talk. Kyle is eavesdropping on some people playing cards. And, of course, Guy's beating the crap out of everybody. Everybody in there, where Hal's at, says we turned down the contract. Kyle is picking up some details about the job itself. Guy has beat the snot out of somebody, and jacks a 9-pack, a 12-pack of Voldarian microbrew. Everybody meets back up on Mogo, compares notes. Guy offers to share his, I guess, victory microbrew. Nobody partakes. John says, I've got this one. The guys don't want to be left out, so what John says, we'll keep it small, stealthy. The rest of the Corps will have orders to keep patrolling their sectors so that the controllers don't know anything's up. And we'll have our own little squad of us 4 human lanterns going to take on the controllers. Back over in the controllers where they're keeping the Guardians, Kellic is saying, do you remember Maltus, a planet teeming with diversity, and at the apex stood ourselves, art, philosophy, science. Our discoveries were as plentiful as the stars. We shared our knowledge with the universe, and the universe knew our name. We were esteemed and revered. Look how far we have regressed. Only a handful remain, isolated, removed, bereft even of the genetic diversity required to sustain our race. We teeter at the precipice of extinction. Meanwhile, the universe curdles. Ganthet responds and says, your recollection is selective. I do not for one moment believe you have forgotten what became of Maltus, how we took from her until she had no more to give and killed our home, essentially. Kellic gets pissed, says you're wrong, shoots his power out at him, and then they decide to make an example. They take their machine, they turn it on, they aim it at Yekop. Yekop gets impaled in the stomach, the heart, and the head by this draining machine, which drains all of his essence and fluid out of him. Kellic says, the controllers and the Guardians have quarreled across the eons we have warred, but deep down in our molecules we remain the same. We carry the precious gift of Maltus within us. It will be harvested from each of you. It will be repurposed, and from the bounty, the controllers will be remade. And as he's saying all this, Yekop's molecules, the essence of what made him a Guardian, and his DNA is being pumped into this chamber. And once it's, ding, timer's done, out steps a newborn controller, fully grown. And next, controllers of the universe. What do you think?
I like this issue too. This issue was at least we have we kind of get more of the understanding of what their plan is. So I thought that was and just the diverse way of everybody approaching their tasks. It's not surprising. Yeah, guy is guy, so that's why it's just kind of funny.
I like Hal's approach. It's almost Sinestro-like. He walks in the room, his hands are crossed, his ring's lit. He says, I'm Hal Jordan. And then the next thing he does is put constructs on all the doors and windows and tell me about the controllers. That's it. That's all he has to do. That's pretty freaking cool. Which also makes me think of, some of the stuff that Venditti did before with the whole, surfer Hal Jordan.
Oh, yes.
Because, he has to have ties to some of this world now, right?
Yeah, you mean the underbelly aspect of it?
Yeah, he's got ties, so people know, more than just Green Lantern. You would assume the name Hal Jordan has spread as well. I mean, if anybody's name has spread, it's got to be Hal. Specifically given his recent tenure in the underbelly of the DCU, I guess. What did you think of the art on Kyle's face when he's in his civvies?
I kind of like that.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I thought he looked weird.
I mean, he did look weird, but...
What did you think of the Malthusian thing? Because I was under the impression that they left Malthus because it was overpopulated. Or am I still stuck in the 70s with Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams?
I think it's like everything else. Well, not everything else. Some things in particular where we know there's like a bunch of different versions or variations on the theme. Kind of like how did Abin-Sur die today? So I think the whole thing with the Malthusians, I think that might be another. I mean, Ganthet, I guess, Ganthet kind of just gives a variation on that theme more or less. So they just drain the planet dry, pretty much.
Which could be from overpopulation.
Yeah,
it could be from pollution.
Yes, it could be from multiple things. So I mean, so it's not entirely out of left field. But obviously, the controllers and the Guardians, not surprisingly, don't see things eye to eye on that subject.
Yeah, I don't know. It's good to see them again. But seeing them again just makes me more, curious about some of the others, like Zamarons and stuff like that. As a matter of fact, you mentioned Larfleeze. Or wait, you're referring to Agent Orange?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't know if you meant the Larfleeze series, if they showed up there, because I have those, but I haven't read them. So it's been a while since we've seen the Zamarons, and what were the other ones' names? The snake-like beings or whatever. We saw them during the New Guard. Yes. So Zamarons, Guardians, Controllers, Scions. Although the Scions were just more of an experiment, right?
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah. And then if we want to go Ganthet's tail, Leprechauns.
Oh my.
Yeah. All right. It doesn't sound like you have much to say about this one.
I was wrestling with my headset too much to have any great pearls of wisdom beyond my normal my original thoughts on this. I'm trying to. Now, up until this issue, there were 4 of these controllers, right?
Yeah.
All right. Because I'm trying to reconcile that with where we begin the next issue.
Okay, so there's 4. The 4 that originally attack. There's 4 at the start of this issue. Then they make a new one. So there should be 5.
Yeah, but as we get into 35 here, there's 5 completely dressed, and then there's 2 more that just came out of the hopper.
Okay, how many Guardians are dead?
Well, they still were showing Yekop getting killed.
Right, Yekop got killed to make the 5th. So, do we have 2 other empty tubes that we see anywhere in the background there? Well, yeah, these 2 guys right here die.
Which 2 guys? Where? Which in the panel? Where are they?
Let's see. So at the start of
that's Yekop over there.
No, at the start of 35, there's the first page, second page, third page. The top 2 panels of the third page.
Well, see, thought to me
that's not Yekop at the top.
You go back and look at. It looks like it is. Well, actually, no, maybe not. The helmet might be a little different, but actually, it looks very similar on the top of the page. Where see they fill. Let's see. They only fill 1 tube from Yekop. Is that what they? Is that okay? See, that's even when I first read this, it kind of confused me
because Yekop has the helmet and then like the kind of scarf thing and. Yeah,
you're right. It is different. It is a little different. That's what threw me off, because it's similar though. The helmet is similar. So
Yeah.
they killed two more Guardians to get 2 more controllers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So they should be at 7 at the start of 35.
All right, so that does make sense. So that was one question that I had from when I first read it, and rereading it didn't help me all that much. All right, so now let's just dive into 35 fully. So this is part 3. We begin in Space Sector 3001, a hidden installation in the vast Maltus belt.
Are they on a space odyssey?
Yeah, I was thinking that too, since that is one of the sequels to 2001. This is 3001. But not in transluminal space, so I guess that's something. So they find the controller's compound, and it's like somewhere down there, Ganthet and Sade are being held captive, and it's like, more or less they have a gamut of mercenaries they're gonna have to run through. And Kyle's like, maybe we should call on the Corps for help, or as a backup, and Hal's like, Kyle kind of has a point, and of course, Kyle just can't let that go. He kind of goes, "Oh, did you just agree with me, Hal?" And Hal's like, "I don't remember." I like that. At least the way Hal handles, all this dick waving stuff is kind of cool. At least, John's kind of like, Guy, is like, "What do you think?" It's like, well, there's 4 legs in a table, 4 walls in the house, 4 seats in a Mustang GT. It's like, we're the 4 corpsmen. It's like, you don't screw with what works. And, they all kind of pick up on the wrestling reference, which, of course, we see again next issue. Now back to that scene we were just kind of talking about in advance of the overall review, where the Guardians, 2 more Guardians bite the dust to make 2 more butt-naked controllers. So they only have 1 female controller.
Yes.
Yes. So I guess if they killed Sade and what's-her-face, I guess they probably would have gotten a female controller. Though you would kind of think, realistically speaking, if you could manipulate that genetic substance, you think you'd be able to manipulate at least to get the gender that you wanted, really. Because you think you think when you're in a race that's close to dying out, you would think you would at least want a few more females anyway. But Kelleck's kind of pointing out, controller's witness. There's 7 of us now, where we had once dwindled down to 4, and plus, rejoice in these newlings, for they mark the first time in millennia that we outnumber the Guardians of the Universe. And this is the part right here which answers my question. Yekop, Natos, and Gurion, those were the 3 that just got the Guardians that got wiped out in the last 3 issues. It's like Ganthet's kind of mourning the loss. Kelleck's trying to, in his own way, in a perverse way, trying to comfort him by saying they're not really gone. They just, kind of like were born anew, because we went back to the root. The root is being we were all Malthusians, and now we just kind of manipulated that to get what we wanted. And then they point out something interesting. Let's see if this ever gets picked up on again. Their plan, that once they sucked everything out of all the Guardians, their plan was to go to visit the Zamorans. Kelleck starts zeroing in on Sade, knowing that's Ganthet's weak spot. Because more or less, Kelleck was trying to get Ganthet to pick which Guardian to bite the dust next. He refused. So that's when Kelleck moved in on Sade, and Sade kind of like wakes up and recognizes Kelleck and spits in his face, and Kelleck right on cue, it's like, begin her harvest. Now at the parapet wall outside, we pretty much have we have the Green these 4 Green Lanterns taking on all these mercenaries, and of course the Green Lanterns do really, really well at first. It's not it's not much of a problem. Then of course then they start getting zapped with this vibrational weapon, and that really literally it screws up the Green Lantern's ability to focus. So they have a hard time maintaining any energy constructs, and they're all pretty much down for the count. And Hal's actually down, and Hal looks like he's about to get picked off, and Guy takes one for the team. He steps in front of the blast, takes the full vibrational shot. This allows Kyle and Hal pretty much an opportunity to fight back while John rescues Guy. Guy is actually pretty hurt. They then they kind of get pinned down, and they behind another piece of the ship, and they realize that they're kind of running out of time because eventually the vibrational weapons are gonna be adjusted, recalibrated, and then they're gonna be able to just blast through the equipment that they were hiding behind. And Hal asks John, like, how are we getting out of this? And they all kind of do their little four corpsman thing, and they all charge together with Green Lantern's light. That's a pretty cool double splash page there, or the top part of a double splash. While this battle's going on outside, we see Kellic more or less hears everything going on, and he kind of sees it through the interior of their chamber. He sees what's going on, and he's kind of like mocking the humans, saying, "Oh, they think they can, they think they have a chance against us." Blah 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 blah. That makes Ganthet kind of laugh, and Ganthet kind of like points out, well, besides the fact that you're overreaching, it's like the reality is, I've endeavored for so long to control these humans. Do you think you can do better? At this point, basically the ship gets ripped. To the part of the ship where the controllers are gets ripped open, and the four corpsmen are there, and it's like, and Ganthet kind of points out, well, if you think you can do better than I with controlling them, it's like, I invite you to try, and that ends this issue. Next, Uncontrollable.
You said this was your least favorite of the four?
I like it a little bit more now when I reread it, but I think overall it's my least favorite.
Why is that?
I think because even though it does serve a plot point, more or less for the controllers to see how their vibrational weapons actually work against the Green Lantern Corps, so it does serve a purpose. When I first read it, it just seemed like this was kind of like just filler, just kind of to do something just to keep more or less Hal and company from showing up a little bit earlier than they did. So that's the main reason.
They make an interesting point about the Zamorans, but then they also say the word compassion twice. It makes me wonder where the hell what's his name is from the Indigo Corps, if they're collecting all the Guardians.
Well, he's never been proven he's 100% a Guardian.
He's got to be. Come on. I mean, that how.
Well, don't forget. You know why? Because whatchamacallit, Knock is usually hidden.
I mean, I guess.
That could be the easy out. Knock is usually hidden, so that's probably why. Remember, they make the point of saying that because they made the point of saying until Ganthet and Sade revealed themselves and basically came back to Mogo, they couldn't collect them either. It was only once they revealed themselves that they were able to go after them. So I think that's probably the answer.
They say something very interesting in the narrative box towards the beginning of this issue, where it says a hidden installation in the vast Maltus belt. Are we to assume that this is the Maltus belt in terms of the pieces of the now destroyed, exploded, whatever planet Maltus? Or are they just referring to a specific region in space the same way we have an asteroid belt in our solar system?
My natural inclination is just to say that it's just like an asteroid belt in that system. But it could be. You never know.
I mean, it's if they're one of the oldest beings in the universe, it has to be one of the oldest planets. So it would make sense if it was completely destroyed.
10 billion years ago.
Wait, wasn't during Rise of the Third Army, I think, didn't Atrocitus go to Maltus when he was getting the heart?
I think so.
Yeah, so I think Maltus was still around. So, that would be possibly another quote-unquote retcon, unless they are telling us it somehow exploded between now and then. Who are these mercenaries? Do we know? Did we get told at all?
I don't. If there's any specific name given to them, I guess it would have been the last issue when they were gathering intel. I can honestly say I didn't pay much attention. I didn't notice it, any connection to something in the past.
Their armor looks almost apocalyptian.
Yeah, I could see that.
Or New Godish. Just thought it was interesting looking. Anything else about this one? Guy taking a shot for Hal.
Yeah, that's not. I mean, that's not really surprising. It's not the only shot Guy takes in this arc. But it's who Guy is. Who Guy is now. That's probably the best way. I thought about this the other day. It's kind of funny. When you really think about maybe like the last, arguably like the last 10 or 15 years at least, that of these four characters, of the four Corpsmen, the one who's probably had the most character growth and has the most development is actually Guy.
I agree, because I didn't really 100% enjoy him as a character until the Emerald Warriors title.
And I liked him before then, but I'm going back to, I mean, the resurrection of Guy more or less started in Kyle's run.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you could make a case it kind of started once he became Guy Gardner Warrior and ditched the whole bowl cut guy, because that was the Guy being a dick era, really, in a nutshell. But it really was during the Kyle era, which actually still goes hand in hand with part of the Guy Gardner Warrior run. That was the first step towards kind of like rehabilitating that character, and then all throughout, even the Johns run, and since the Johns run, obviously when he was over in Red Lanterns too, that Guy is actually the one that's had the most development and growth of pretty much all four of them. I mean, most of the other characters really haven't changed all that much. So I just thought about that the other day, and I was like, yeah, it's Guy.
All right, 36.
36.
All right, issue number 36, Twilight of the Guardians, the conclusion, What We Leave Behind. Writer Robert Venditti, pencils Jack Herbert, and Jose Luis, inks Herbert, Mick Gray, and Cam Smith, colorist Jason Wright, letterer Dave Sharp, cover Francis Manapul, variant cover Barry Kitson and Hi-Fi, assistant editor Andrew Marino, and Mike Cotton, editor. Quick question. When they say Jack Herbert and Jose Luis, they don't mean Jose Luis Garcia Lopez, do they?
I'm going to assume no.
Okay, because I don't think I recognized any Jose Luis Garcia Lopez, praise be his name, artwork in here. All right, so we pick up where we left off. The four corpsmen are coming in to take care of business. They attack the controllers. Hal says, bad move. Guy says you pick a fight with the Guardians, and John finishes up, and you pick a fight with the Green Lantern Corps. And then Kyle chimes in with, yeah! Essentially, he says that's us. So
yeah, he got the shitty end of that stick.
Yeah, for sure. Ganthet is thinking to himself this entire time. He's thinking about his own legacy, what he leaves behind. He's been called a guardian. He's been called, a husband, but he's never been called father. He thinks about Hal. He's the first Green Lantern of Earth. I once questioned whether a human could wear a ring with distinction. Now he is spoken of as the greatest Green Lantern of them all. John Stewart, the second human chosen, an architect and soldier, leader of the Green Lantern Corps. Guy Gardner, the third of Earth, wears the ring as though he has something to prove to himself most of all. And Kyle Rayner, the heart and spirit of an artist reside within. When his ring was bestowed upon him, I merely said, you shall have to do. I thought little of him, yet he has proven me wrong time and time again.
Nice shot at Kyle in this issue.
Hal's attacking controllers with missile launchers attached to his shoulders. John is swinging a wrecking ball at them. Guy is pulling a season 1 of Daredevil Kingpin on one of the controllers. If you know what I'm talking about. Did you see that?
Okay, I think I saw that.
When the first full episode of Kingpin, when he smashed the dude's head into his car door, until it opened like a grape. They stay and they say, hey, it's over. And they say, is it? And Kellic blasts him with psionic ability and says, basically, the vibrational weapons you encountered above are just a technological, version of my own honed abilities. He can't save the Guardians. He never could. He gives the order to harvest all of them. They start, typing up the controls. We have left Kadasal, Raimi, Zala, Palco, Ganthet, and Sade. Meanwhile, the Green Lanterns are being pinned down with this vibrational ability. Kyle and Guy kind of join arms and cover Hal so that they're taking the brunt of this vibrational ability, and Hal has the power and ability to shoot. John says, Hal, fire, and he does, and this ricochets Hal's blast, grazing past the controller. He says, it's wasted effort. I always hit what I'm aiming for, and he has smashed the control panel of the harvest machine, and boom, the Guardians of the Universe are free. And John says, rally, Lanterns, the reinforcements are here. They attack the controllers. Kyle grabs 3 of them and throws them, and and it says, one time for one of your sports references guy, a grand slam feels right as he hits him with a bat. John throws some into a wall with a shovel on a crane. Hal punches them with a construct. Ganthet says, Kellic, the controllers will stand trial for the crimes yield. And Zala says, a trial, they turned our brothers into abominations. Vengeance cannot be our way, says Ganthet as he holds her back. And he says, Kellic says, sentimental fools, and all of the controllers vanish. And Ganthet says, then our eternal conflict will continue another day. And then, I'm assuming the most conversation we're going to get out of this. It's good to see you again, Kyle Rayner. Green suits you. Is this where you've been all this time, Palco? Everyone thought the Templar Guardians were on another space walkabout. And Palco says the controllers captured us and held us here until all the Guardians were in their grasp. They knew that to harvest us would be sensed by any Guardian still free. And Ganthet says the loss of 3 is indeed felt. And Sade's like, how were you able to find us? And Guy says, you want the official answer? We follow the rules and procedures of lawful police work. She's like, say no more. And John's like, seriously, Guy, don't say any more. And Hal says, you've always been there for us, Ganthet. No way we weren't going to be there for you. And then later on, the 4 corpsmen are taking care of the mercenaries and sending them and hauling them back to Mogo to be incarcerated in sign cells. And the House says, if we're the Green Lantern equivalent of wrestling's 4 horsemen, then who's Ric Flair? Kyle says, I have pretty great hair. And John says, but I'm the leader. And the House says, come on, I'm obviously Ric Flair. And the guy says, we can't all be Ric Flair. Then back on Mogo, and I'm just going to read all of this 2 pages because I think it's going to be important to where everything's going next. On Mogo, Sade says, why have you brought us here, Ganthet? And Raimi says, Ganthet? And Ganthet says, because this hall has remained dark too long, since the days when corruption and manipulation calcified the hearts of the Guardians of the Universe. We were feared then. Our immortality led us to demand that others serve us as creators rather than us serving the created. Today I looked into the face of the controllers and I saw Guardians gazing back at me, but there is yet time. Sade says, what are you suggesting? He says, brothers and sisters, today the race of the Guardians was nearly expunged. If it had been, the universe would have rejoiced. I refuse to allow that to be my legacy, our legacy. One day our race will most certainly die. We are too few, and it is far too late for us to reverse the tide of age. Yet here we are at the center of the cosmos, surrounded by the core we created. A core where even 4 humans have the will to stand and fight against the might of immortals. Hal Jordan driven by the will to be the first and greatest in all things. John Stewart cares not about being first or greatest, but about making each decision count. Guy Gardner never has a Lantern believed themselves to be so unworthy while demonstrating otherwise. And Kyle Rayner, his concern for others is his only torch and compass. We Guardians have no descendants, no generations will follow us, but there is the Green Lantern Corps. We can vow and bend all our effort and knowledge toward guiding it. From this day until our last day comes for us, we can take our rightful place as governing council again. The name Guardian can stand for justice, reason, and decency. Our true immortality will be the works we leave behind. This will be our legacy. And he forms a bunch of Green Lantern Guardian robes and clothes all of them in them. And they are the Guardians once more. And then over on Sector 0001 on a barren world, the controllers have rallied and says, hey, this is kind of went according to plan. We now know our new weapon is effective against the Green Lanterns. We added 3 to our number. However, it will not be enough to take the universe. If we are to match the power of the Guardians and their Green Lantern Corps, we will need an army of our own. With a legion of new Dark Stars at our command, we will control again. And next, Zod.
Yawn.
All right. What do you think of this issue?
This was my second favorite issue.
This is my favorite issue. I like seeing them back in their robes. I like seeing Kyle being buddy-buddy with the Guardians again. I like seeing Ganthet and the other Guardians owning up to their position in the universe. I liked Hal squatting in front of Ganthet saying, hey, you've always been there for me. It's not like hell I'm not going to be there for you. I liked a lot about it. I like the whole arc in general, actually.
Yeah.
I don't find much fault in this arc.
No, it was one of Robert Venditti's better arcs. There's no doubt about that. It would have been knocking on the door near perfect if they hadn't had that stupid comment about the Templar Guardians. I mean, that's just so blatantly obviously not true to anybody who's been reading Green Lantern over the last 4 years. That's not the way people have been talking. When the Guardians come up in conversation, that's not what people have been saying or how they've been referring to the Guardians. Oh yeah, they're away, which is what they should have been referring to them as. On that level, he's completely accurate. They should have just assumed they were out there because there was no reason to think they were dead. But everybody was talking as if the Guardians were dead. So to make it sound like, oh, that wasn't really happening. You lost at least like a point at least a point out of 10 right there, just in the whole arc as a whole, just because that was so blatantly self-serving to try to. I mean, I don't know.
What do you think of what Ganthet says here? Does this mean John Stewart is still the leader? Because Ganthet says we can take our rightful place as governing council again. Does this mean they're like in charge of the Green Lantern Corps, or do you think John Stewart will step down? Because as we talk about this, the next issues haven't released yet.
I don't think that John Stewart's going to step down. I just think they're going back to the traditional role of being they are the Jedi, basically the Jedi Council. So they may be calling the big picture shots. They won't be necessarily calling the day-to-day operational shots about everything that's going on. But we'll have to see how it evolves, and that's why I'm sure I'm not going to say John's going to be happy with it to start with. But he'll be uneasy. He may very well be uneasy about it, which is understandable based on everything we've seen happen before with the Guardians.
I think it's safe to say he trusts Sade and Ganthet, maybe to a lesser degree than like say Hal does. But I wonder if Kyle's trust of the Templar Guardians will help John trust them on his own. But then you have the wild card of Raimi.
That is true. And we should take bets on when Raimi shows up in the Green Lantern book, in this book, whether he's going to reference at all anything that happened in the other book, including his buddy Tyranneer, who he was off on a quest with before he got abducted. So are we supposed to just assume in all this that the controllers basically were only powerful when they had the numbers advantage over the Guardians? Because there's a little inconsistency there, the way they so easily were able to negate Ganthet and Sade, but yet they throw in the fact that it's a double whammy. The fact that once the 6 Guardians are there, even though technically speaking the controllers have 7, then all of a sudden the controllers got to get out of dodge, and then there's the fact that the little line about if they had sucked us into a bottle of juice before they had captured all the Guardians, the other Guardians would have detected it. And it's like, okay. So I guess we have. It's kind of like they're trying to send mixed messages that the controllers are more powerful and deadlier than ever, but yet they aren't. They're not powerful enough to take on the Guardians when the Guardians aren't getting sucker punched, pretty much.
Well, yeah, I think it's a numbers thing because you have to also consider the lengths they went to get all of this set up before they even started collecting Guardians. I mean, they hired mercenaries, they set up a lab, they did all of this stuff and set it all in place and then they grabbed the Guardians like one by one. They took Raimi, they took the Templar Guardians and stuff, but that I feel like it is the numbers thing. And speaking of Raimi, one thing I wanted to ask. Why doesn't Ganthet say anything to Raimi? Because the last time Ganthet saw Raimi, he was not Raimi. He was Volthoom doing some shiesty shit.
Which would have been even cooler if that's when they captured him. I mean, we know that's not possible, but that would have been quite interesting if it had been Volthoom inside of.
Yeah, like why don't they say like, hey, what happened? Well, because they didn't know he was Volthoom, and there wasn't a point where they did. But like, seems like an odd place to leave off. Hey, whatever happened with your mission and blah blah blah? When you were looking to do this, you were going to help us with ABCD, right?
Did you fix those rings, motherfucker?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh no, as a matter. I've been chasing Volthoom. What? Volthoom is back. And in fact, he was in my body. I think. I mean, I know he was in my body, but when you talk. I don't remember seeing you. Why are you being friendly with me? You were a dick to me the last time I saw you. There's a whole lot of stuff that. This is the stuff that makes you just want to drink. I have mixed thoughts about the robes. I mean, it's kind of nice seeing him in the robes, but I kind of was used to seeing Ganthet in his little like his Blue Lantern monk kind of robe. So I'm kind of gonna miss those.
Maybe I need a robe like that.
You have way too many robes, isn't it? I kind of thought this arc was getting a little. Jeez, whoever stapled this issue did not do a good job because my centerfold just came out and it's not something you'd be hanging on the wall either. I kind of thought that they were being a little heavy-handed, but constantly talking about. John is this, and Hal is this, and Kyle is this, because they only do it like in 3 of the friggin' 4 issues, I think.
Personally, I kind of like it because of all the 4 Lanterns, the one I have the trouble with defining the most is always John Stewart. So I like having these little blurbs to refer to. Now, don't get me wrong, I get you. It can get old pretty quickly, but I thought it was cool because I'm like, I don't have... in my own lexicon, my own specific, sentence or two to refer to who John Stewart is. Because in the past, I've always kind of defined, or other people have defined him as the Marine, the angry black architect, the guy who had his wife killed by his friend's girlfriend, the guy who killed Xanshi.
Planet killer!
He's been defined by these things as opposed to being a personality in and of himself. So I did like seeing that. I thought that was cool. But it did get kind of heavy-handed there for a little bit.
So who do you think Ric Flair really is?
Guy.
Really?
I preface this by saying I'm not a big wrestling fan, so I don't really know what the hell I'm talking about.
Because Guy's like the only one who's not making a claim to be Ric Flair. Is that why you picked him?
I guess.
I think it would have to be John or Hal. Hal's a logical one because Hal goes is where the core tends to go at the end of the day. But John is the leader. That part was valid. Throwing that out. He is the technical leader. So I think it'd be between Hal and John. It definitely. I guess I don't think I could make a good case for Guy, and I definitely wouldn't make the case for Kyle. But,
All right. I mean, if Venditti starts making like Firefly references or something, then I'll take that. But yeah, wrestling, not something I really care about. All right. Anything else you want to say about this issue or this arc overall?
just what I said. I think this is overall probably, this may be, certainly when you come, well, I still think it's one of the better arcs. There was something else I wanted to add, which kind of takes away from, I was all ready to say this may be the absolute best, but then it still kind of had the problem of the ending wasn't as weak as some of the other endings we've seen, but the whole, we'll have to continue this endless struggle another day, that just seemed a little bullshit too. It's like
we'll live to fight another day, G.I. Joe.
Yeah, it kind of reeked a little of that. So that it didn't bother me because you kind of expect it, and it's also a comic book, so nothing's ever truly resolved anyway. But you like to get at least once in a while, you like to get an arc where you really feel there's at least a resolution that's a resolution at least until the character shows up again and you find out why it wasn't. This it's not a resolution. I mean, they did balance it out a little bit by having the Guardians put on the Chad robes and the controllers whipping out their Dark Stars.
That's cool too because they leave us a lot of stuff. A lot of times when those, we'll live to fight another day kind of things happen, there's not a lot left on the table, and you're like, well, all right, well, what's the second story part of the story going to be? In this case, they're like, the Dark Stars, we have more controllers, this is our plan. We did also say we were going to go after the Zamoron, so there's like a bunch of places they could go with this when they pick this thread back up again.
They need to just get Lorfleeze come and fuck them up one more time. Fuck you up.
And if Venditti picks up on that too, that'd be interesting. Hey, once upon a time we tried to harness the orange light of greed, let's try it again. That would be interesting too.
Did any of those controllers escape though?
I don't remember. I know for sure one of them was part of
his contract. His contract.
For sure.
Yeah, because I have the hero. That's one of the hero clicks. Was a energy constructed controller. I thought they all. Maybe some did escape. I'd be curious to go back and look at that because certainly, although I think all the ones that went down to the planet got wiped out. Maybe just not all of them that got sent down to the planet.
That might be it. But yeah, I mean, I enjoyed this arc. Going back and reading it, I think I enjoyed it a little bit more because on the first read through and then reflecting on it before reading it again a second time in preparation for this episode, I felt like the Guardians being at the mercy of the controllers was a piece of the story that went on too long. But reading it again, it didn't really feel more stretched than it needed to be, I guess. So I guess, I could still make the argument, but I think that if I did, it would be a little bit nitpicky, so I'll let it slide. Good job, Venditti. I enjoyed it. I had fun. Really major props to the art. I really enjoyed the art in these issues.
Yes.
And thanks for finally answering the question. I mean, at one point we did say, I don't even care if I 100% agree with the explanation. Just freaking give me an answer. Are they still around? I did say that. So Space Walkabout, which you did bold for a reason, because clearly that is your official explanation. Because sometimes when they bold those words in the word bubbles, that's a note from the scripter. So, all right. Space Walkabout is our explanation, but we got them. They're back. We understand what happened. We didn't just forget that they existed. Okay. Thank you for answering that question. Now, on to Zamorons and the Indigo Tribe. What is going on with them?
Yeah. it would be nice to see something about the Indigo Tribe, especially since it's been a while since Godhead now, and we really haven't seen much of, not counting the bull crap in the Lobo series with what happened to poor Monk and things like that. We really haven't seen them at all since Godhead, when they've kind of screwed over the rest of the Corps. So that's a story that is just kind of crying out to be revisited, to bring the Indigo Tribe back, especially if the Indigo Tribe needs to, more or less, they need either another Corps, whether it's the Greens or somebody else, to work with them. And now, of course, nobody wants to because of what they did, how they sold them out to Highfather. So yeah. It'll be. It's going to be curious in general now, because I think this friggin' Zod thing is like 4 issues too. So that's going to take us. So where do we end up in this? 36.
Yep.
36. So Zod's probably going to take us to 40, and then obviously we're going to be counting down to issue 50. So depending on how many, you kind of figuring we're only going to have 2 to 3 more arcs before we get to 50, depending on. Obviously he could approach it differently, but based on the current trajectory, he seems to be going for more longer arcs than shorter arcs. So maybe, who knows?
I do like the idea, though, that his quote-unquote longer arcs are 4 issues instead of like 6 or 8.
Yeah, I don't think we've had that many arcs like that with Robert Venditti that haven't been crossovers between books. Mm-hmm. Because that's a hard sell. I know it's a little easier it's easier now that it's twice a month. Because it's if it's 8 issues, it's still 4 friggin' months, but it is only 4 months as opposed to 8 months. So I agree. I do think I think this book has picked up a little bit. I think it's kind of picked up again. So, but I'm just curious to see where he goes. We'll have to. You kind of suspect it can't be too long before Sinestro starts showing up. Probably won't be too long before we find out what happened to Parallax. Either Parallax, for that matter, but I actually was thinking of the actual entity. Which of course will make probably us happy, but some people, the anti-emotional spectrum people, will be bitching, even though they can't bitch too much, because we really haven't got it hasn't been overly heavy-handed or even much of a factor in this book, since certainly other than the Sinestro Corps, and that had to be dealt with. So maybe the first half of the run had a lot to do with the emotional spectrum. You can't really say like the last 15 or 16 issues have been that heavy into it, I don't think.
All right. Anything else about this arc?
Nope.
All right. So we told you guys to stick around, and there's a reason. For several months now, I've been talking off and on about a podcast that I've been listening to that made its debut sometime during the summer. The Dr. DC podcast. And I'm an avid listener of that. I submit questions and talk with him on Twitter and so on and so forth. And the LanternCast will be crossing over with the Dr. DC podcast next week. For those of you who don't know, the Dr. DC podcast is a podcast involving the Doctor, who is an avid DC Comics fan, has almost encyclopedic-like knowledge about the DC universe in particular, joined by their producer, Richard, who is a fan of comics, both DC and other comics as well. He's actually made some references to some indie titles that I myself also follow, so kind of want to talk to him more about that. And then Colin, who is not a comic fan at all, kind of diving into the DC universe together, taking questions from their listeners about various topics. The most recent issue, which actually, as we record this, dropped today, was about cold-themed heroes, villains, just cold as a weapon or power in the DCU. And they get a lot of mileage out of that stuff. Well, for quite a long time, almost every episode, something will come up in relation to the Green Lantern Corps. They'll mention, heroes becoming villains and name drop Hal Jordan becoming Parallax and so on and so forth. There'll be some random tie-in to the Green Lantern Corps. There's actually been several random references to various things in which the Doctor will say something along the lines of, at one point we'll do an episode on that, like the history of the Hawks. Good luck, by the way. But they've been talking a lot, off and on, since their entire podcast started about the Green Lantern Corps. And of course, since I participate and ask questions and all this stuff, I try to steer the conversation that way sometimes, just to hear their take on it. Well, they've had guests on, they've gone to a convention and hosted a panel, but they've never crossed over with another podcast. And they're, I guess, popping that cherry with us. And so they're going to be having an episode about the Green Lantern Corps and, I guess, all ancillary related characters and villains and origins and mythos. And the way it works on the Dr. DC podcast is the listener submits questions. So, if you guys have any questions about Green Lantern, and we're talking anything involving the Green Lantern mythos, you can ask those questions. Find the Dr. DC podcast on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram. It's very easy. Just search Dr. DC podcast. Or go to their website, Dr. DC or Dr. DC podcast or something like that, .ca. And you can email them as well through that site. Or if you don't want to deal with all that, you can contact us directly and we'll give them those questions. But their episode will be all about questions on the Green Lantern mythos. I'm super stoked for this crossover. I don't know, how about you?
I'm very intrigued. I like the concept of their podcast. I like what the way they approach it. So, whenever you have a Q&A thing, you're always worried that, like, people will ask you like 5 questions, and there'll be 5 questions you have no friggin' idea how to, no answer to them whatsoever. Like, and then you look really stupid, and then the podcast ends. I don't mean like the episode. I mean the podcast ends. Time for the third team to take over.
So the way it's going to work is early next week, Mark and I are going to record those episodes with them. Mark and I are going on their show, and their show will drop next Wednesday. As you hear this, the next Wednesday you experience will be the Dr. DC episode in which Mark and I appear on their show. Then, that Friday after that, that will be our episode, where the Doctor comes onto our show, and we'll talk more Green Lantern related stuff. We're not going to tell you what that is yet, but we will be talking more in depth about Green Lantern in some way, shape, or form. So, and the Doctor will join us for that. So, we go over there, they come over to us. I don't know if Cisco Ramon's going to open a breach and we're going to jump back and forth. I don't know how it's going to work. But yeah, we're going to do a podcast crossover. I don't think we've ever done anything like this. We've appeared on other shows, but never like a 1-for-1 thing.
I think that's correct.
So this will be something new and unique for us. And it'll be the first thing for them, first time teaming up with a podcast at all. So it should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
All right, guys. So next week, the Dr. DC podcast crossover. Their episode drops on Wednesday. Ours drops on Friday. So enjoy. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Mark, if they want to reach out to us and they don't feel like reaching out to the Dr. DC stuff to submit those questions, how can they do so?
LanternCast@gmail.com. That's your best bet especially based on the Doctor podcast crossover. That would be the best bet for questions. If you want to give them to us, website LanternCast.com. We are on Twitter, Facebook. Use hashtag GLCast to locate us on either of those. iTunes and Stitcher, whichever platform you listen to us on, and we are on both. Please leave us a positive review. And last but not least, 708 Lantern is the voicemail, so let us know what you think.
All right, guys. We will talk to you later.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.